It says starting. Okay, so we're ready to go. My name is Beth Snider. I'm an illustrator in the Kansas City area in the US. And I'm here with my illustrator friend, Barbara Nigg. She's all the way over in Switzerland. Do you want to say hi?
Hello, everyone. Greetings from Switzerland.
All right. Well, I'm really excited to be here with you for another week. We like to get together every week and discuss a topic that is that illustrators right now are dealing with. And Barbara sent me a bunch of questions, and they're such good questions that I wanted to take them slow. And so my goal is just to take them one by one and answer them each week. And we have no time limit, so we're just gonna keep on going until all of her questions are answered. And we are here today just to answer the question that is on the topic, and Barbara's free to ask more questions if she has it on that subject too. So today's subject is how to price illustration work.
Yay, perfect timing.
Yeah, I think that's like it can be a broad subject because there's a lot of stuff involved with it. But I've taken notes, so hopefully my answer is somewhat organized. But first, before I explain my process, I was going to ask you if you have a process.
For pricing, my process is my process is no process at the moment. Actually, what happens to me is I've started a project without giving too much thought to the price, and then I've had scope creep. And then I really get myself in a situation where I didn't set a boundary with the price in the beginning, and then the ideas just grow and grow and grow. And I'm now in a situation with a certain client where the project is just so huge, I don't think I'll ever be paid. So I would really like to understand how to set that up from the beginning so I don't get myself in this situation. And to be fair to myself, the reason it happened is that I wasn't expecting to be asked to do the job, and I've never done this particular type of job before, and I wasn't prepared. So next time, be prepared.
So, is your job that you're doing right now, is it for someone that you've never met before, or for a friend, or
It's for a small business. It's a dog babysitting service, and they also sell products for dogs, collars and stuff like that. And she asked me to do a line of stationery for them with pictures of the dogs that are in the dog babysitting business.
Okay. So how is she going to use them in her business?
That's a good question, because that's part of the scope creep. Originally they were going to be cards, so they're going to be greeting cards, and we decided on just postcard format. I popped into the store yesterday, and now she's talking about doing mats for the dog bowls and pillows, and she's already printed a draft I sent on a canvas that's now hanging in her home, and nothing's been
made yet.
No.
Wow.
Yeah, but I can't be upset with her. That's my own fault for not being really clear about the boundaries. And also, it's a learning process. I sent her a file that was clearly printable because she printed it.
Right. That is one thing that I actually take the time to make sure I send low resolution files. Okay. I don't put like a watermark all over them, because then they can't see it like as clearly as possible. But all you have to do is just resize it to a size that would be blurry if she printed it out. Yeah. And a lot of times I even name those files low resolution file of whatever it is. So if they're seeing that file in an email, they're going to know this is not printable.
Yeah.
And actually, I have a project that I'm working on right now that will take me. It's really extensive. It's like about 30 different illustrations for a project, and I have to send each one of them, and I'm having to convert each one of them to a smaller size. But I'm taking the time to do it because I want to make sure that I don't send her anything that can actually be used yet.
Yeah.
So it is going to take me a little bit extra time, but I think that's worth it because you want to make sure that you have some leverage to
Yeah.
still get paid.
Yeah, exactly. And she's a really wonderful person. She would not, she's in no means did she mean to rip me off. She just
Yeah.
didn't think.
And
And
people don't even, I don't think people know what courtesy is. You
no,
have to guide them.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah. If she was in the illustration community, she would know that's kind of like overstepping the boundary, but we can't expect everyone to know.
Mm-mm.
So, anyway, okay, well, I think that this is going to help you so much. And your actual personal experience is going to make you remember never to let this happen again. So, next time, you'll be equipped with the tools to be able to have a whole different experience.
Mhm.
And I've had lots of stories like that myself. So you're not alone, and you're not doing anything wrong. So anyway, um, so there are some different theories on how to price, and some people uh, price per hour, and that's like really common.
Yeah.
People just be like, "Hey, my hourly rate is whatever,
Mhm.
$20 an hour, $50 an hour, $80 an hour." um, so there are some problems with that. And I just want to discuss those problems before I discuss the way that I do it. Three major problems with that would be that you suffer for being good at your job.
Mhm.
Logic would tell us that the more experience that you gain as an illustrator, the more efficient you're going to be, um,
Mhm.
and probably the faster that you're going to produce better work.
Mhm.
Um, and just setting up a system where you're getting paid hourly is like penalizing your own self for being more efficient at your job.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit counterintuitive to do that. And so it kind of like sets up a just a weird relationship that it's not like as lighthearted and helpful as you would want to present yourself to the
Yeah.
client. And it's like, more of like a tense, distrusting relationship that you're setting them up for.
Yeah.
Okay, so also you're leaving money on the table. So if you charge the same hourly price to every client that you have, no matter if it's like a personal commission or a real big company that's got a huge audience and a huge reach,
Mhm.
um, that it's just you're putting a cap on your earning potential because a company like Starbucks will have a far greater reach than a stay-at-home mom who sells hair bows. Nothing wrong with that. I think there's some moms that are killing it at selling hair bows.
Yeah.
Um,
I know someone who does that, and I did something for her.
yeah, and those can be really fun projects because it's a chance for us to build our portfolio and get really super creative. Um,
Yeah.
I I actually like projects like that, so there's nothing wrong with it. Um, but we have to understand that if the audience is larger, then the client is receiving a much greater monetary value from what we're providing for them
Yeah.
than the smaller client. And so your work is literally worth different amounts of money depending on who you're working for.
Mhm. I've
Uh,
never thought of it like that at all.
yeah, this is a new concept to me whenever I first started the pricing process that I use now. Um, So then also with an hourly rate, you tend to nickel and dime your clients.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, you'll want to keep track of every minute that you spend on their project, and
Mhm.
and it's that's great for personal reasons, which I'm going to explain in a little bit. But putting your client on a time clock can create a situation where they feel awful for asking for things because they know they're going to get charged more for it.
Yeah.
Um, and then it diverts you from your goal of
Yeah.
trying to present the best results possible to them.
Yeah.
Okay, so the pricing situation that I like the best is per project pricing.
Mhm.
And that is also known as value based pricing.
Mhm.
It's a pricing strategy which sets prices primarily according to the perceived or estimated value of a product or service to the customer rather than according to the cost of the product or historical prices. So I just read that. Basically, it's based on, like I said before, the value that you're providing to the company, and it's not going to be the same for every single client. So then what I have come up with is 5 factors involved in formulating a project price. And this is how I get to my pricing. First of all, I ask myself, how long will I spend on the project?
Mhm.
If you don't know how long certain things related to a project take, you might want to start a log, but
Mhm.
you'll never show that to your client. They don't
Mhm.
need to know how long you're spending on stuff,
Okay.
or how long something takes you.
Yeah.
It's just not even necessary to tell them.
Okay.
But you need to know for your own personal information, just because you're trying to maximize your results in the most efficient time manner possible, and
Mhm.
to get to know your own process, you're going to benefit from that yourself.
Mhm.
um, so obviously, also whenever you're keeping track, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever kept a food journal or anything like that.
Yeah.
I have done that before, and I tend to eat healthier just because I'm writing it down.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, just because you're writing down your hours that you're spending on a certain task, you're going to want to, like, almost be competitive with yourself,
Mhm.
and actually be faster at
Mhm.
something that you'd normally just be kind of like leisurely about if you had no time limit. Um, so I actually have listed a bunch of projects to track. But before I list them, can you think of anything off the top of your head that are the kind of tasks that you would keep time on?
Oh yeah, I'm also a copywriter, so I do that for my copywriting, and I have a good app for that actually. I have to dig it out again, but I was using it quite a bit, and what it was really helpful was I didn't realize I was spending as much time on emails and communicating with the client back and forth as I was, and not as much on the actual work. I mean, I was always spending a lot of time on the work, but you know what I mean? I had time disappearing on me in emails because I was constantly answering emails. It all adds up.
Mhm.
So I think that's really helpful. So if you, I would include that in this as well. Any communication with the client,
Yeah.
outside of doing the artwork, needs to be tracked, and the
Yeah.
time it takes.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's not that you want to get into a situation where you're wanting to have just super short
Mhm.
communications
No.
with them. But I would limit the communication that you freely give, unless you really know that you have a good chance to land a certain client. Um, because if you're kind of pursuing someone who is really difficult to get, and you're spending all sorts of time before you ever sign a contract,
Yeah.
it's just not a good way to spend your time. So I think that's what our last video really helped with, just identifying what kind of clients that you want to work with,
Yes.
and then you can be really wise about how you spend your time, even acquiring a client, and then afterwards, just being generous with that time, because you're going to do a better job the more time that you're able to freely give to them. But there are certain types of people that are kind of time suckers,
Yeah.
and you're going to have to get good at putting healthy boundaries in place.
Yeah.
That might be another topic for another time.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just put things like research time, looking for reference if the client wants you to provide that.
Yeah.
And these are all factors that will actually go into your pricing. So it's not like you're going to be giving these things away. You're going to price accordingly to
Mhm.
how much time you'd like to give to something like that. And
Mhm.
not every project requires you to do research time.
Mhm.
A lot of times, they'll give you an exact reference, be like, this is exactly what I want, and they'll describe it pretty succinctly, and it's a lot easier for you. But there's some times where a person's like, I don't really know what I want, man. Can you create a mood board for me? And that does take time.
Yeah.
Um, and also time developing your concept through sketches.
Yeah.
That's not free time, and it's something that they have to end up paying for.
Mhm.
time on sketch phases and revisions.
Mhm.
I tend to do 2 rounds of revisions. So I'll sketch something in black and white, send it to them, and then give them 2 rounds of chances to change it.
While it's still in black and white.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just because it's easier to change it then than
Mhm.
in color according to how I create my artwork. But if you want to do some like color sketches, which you can, it's just like, laying down color that's experimental.
Mhm.
That might be how you work. So I think every artist is different.
Mhm.
And it's not like I just decided that 2 rounds of sketches is standard. I mean, if you talk to the client and they might actually be like, I really want to get this right and I'm willing to pay for the time to get it right, then
Mhm.
you might put in a lot more sketch rounds or revision rounds. And then you want to do the final rendering after
Mhm.
that. And then usually I will offer like small changes to that final rendering.
Mhm.
And if they want anything more than an hour,
Mhm.
it would take me, if that change would take me longer than an hour, I will charge them an
Yeah.
hourly rate.
Yeah.
And
Does
it's
that
not
happen very often?
what?
Does that happen very often? That you'll have a
Um,
situation where you're changing something after it's fairly final.
I haven't had any really big changes after it's final because I've been really careful in the sketch phases.
Mhm.
And so it hasn't been necessary. But I think also it's a deterrent because I will put any changes after it that take me longer than an hour to make to the final will be at the rate of, I say, $50 an hour. And
Mhm.
some illustrators are a lot more expensive than that. But
Mhm.
I think that alone kind of makes them really careful about asking for
Mhm.
changes.
Mhm.
And I include all of that in the proposal,
Mhm.
as well as in the contract. So I'm really clear about it. I
Okay.
have a whole section in my contract about revisions,
Yeah.
and that's something really important to include. It'll prevent scope creep.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so then I definitely take time for admin time, preparing contracts and meetings and emails. And then also another thing that not every illustrator charges for. I've been beginning to charge for strategy,
Yeah.
which is that after you work with enough companies, you're going to start to develop some skills that give you critical thinking and innovative ideas that they might not automatically think of
Yeah.
whenever they're hiring you for a project. So I feel like illustrators really should like lean into that
Mhm.
special knowledge that they're acquiring and see it as an asset to
Mhm.
offer to their clients. And so, I put that as part of the proposal, I'll
Yeah.
say. Um, and if you're interested, this strategy will be um, included in this and what I can offer you. Okay, so uh, number two factor that goes into pricing is um, supply and overhead costs.
Mhm.
These are all like super obvious. Like, if you're working with traditional media, then it's like your paper, canvas, pencils, brushes, like anything you physically need to create
Mhm.
your art. And sometimes people don't have home scanners. If they want to make sure their scans are really high resolution, they might go and pay a print shop to do
Mhm.
that for them, which is totally fine. Print shop can prepare it for them and send it to them in email form. And then even the fuel or shipping costs for those things, um,
Mhm.
because it takes time to go and buy your supplies,
Yes.
and that's something to be considered. Um, and then if you work digitally, things like monthly subscriptions to the Adobe Suite, like
Yeah.
use Photoshop or Illustrator, um, and then the cost of your tablet, computer, and website maintenance as well.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying to charge, you know, a huge amount for those things. It's just a portion. What you think that, if your equipment was to break down,
Yeah. You have
you
to
know, it's good to consider a small amount to go towards repairs, or replacing, upgrading eventually. You're
Yeah.
gonna need to upgrade. So, those are just things besides your profit
Yeah.
that are just gonna be a cost. And so, I mean, there's lots of different things in that can be included in that, but just practical things. So, number three, a factor that goes into pricing is copyright license.
Mhm.
And this is a really big thing that
Wow.
illustrators starting out overlook.
Yeah. I
Um,
considered that at all.
yeah, and I think this applies specifically to the job that you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And while you may not be able to go back on that,
Mhm.
whenever you said that she wants to use it for mats and
Yeah.
um,
Other products, for
other
sure.
products,
Yeah.
well, that should be an extra cost,
Okay.
um, unless you had previously just given her a higher price and then said you can use it on anything.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but those are known as ancillary project products.
Mhm.
So it's like um, it's okay to put in your license that this can only be used for this purpose only and describe exactly what that is for stationery only.
Mhm.
And that includes or excludes postcards because there's lots of different
Mm.
iterations of stationery as well.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's up to you to get real creative about that. So um, a lot of different ways that you can describe a copyright in a contract would be one, length of time.
Yeah.
You can create those usage rights for amounts of years, which I love to do because that will necessitate a renewal the next year. And
Yeah.
if that actually does them a service because it's like if this is being successful for you,
Yeah.
I want you to be able to renew it, but if it's not successful, then, you don't have to pay again
Mhm.
and we can part ways. And
Mhm.
then those rights revert back to you and you can sell those again to someone else.
Yeah.
So, these illustrations can live on.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, I use it for that client and then I can never use it again. What
Yeah.
if you want to sell graphics for digital download?
Yeah.
You should be able to do that if they're not using those anymore.
Yeah.
And to state that clearly so there's no misunderstanding is like super helpful for good relationship.
Mhm.
But I have several different situations where I've done offered just a year worth of rights, and I usually
Mhm.
make that an unlimited amount in 1 year.
Yeah.
And I actually have a pretty substantial payment coming up in a couple of months. So and I don't have to do any extra work for that. It's
Yeah.
great.
So she's renewing it, just renewing what you've set up then.
Yep.
That's very nice.
And a lot of times that can just be at least like 50 to 100% or higher of
Mhm.
the actual cost that it took for them to commission it from you.
Uh-huh.
Um, or you can sell them the rights in perpetuity, which
Mhm.
is forever, and that should be at a lot higher price. So, I will times it by five.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
That helps.
a lot of times, also, if you offer different options, then if you were to say, okay, well, it's going to be this much greater of a price, um, and you throw that price out there first, it's an anchor. So
Mhm.
that whenever you actually are aiming for probably the second or third suggestions that you're going to give them,
Yeah.
um, they'll think that they'll realize they're getting a good deal.
Yeah.
And so, you might be like, okay, so this project is, so much, say it's going to be $700 altogether for this illustration. And if you want to buy the rights for this, exclusive rights forever, it's going to be like, say, $7,000.
Mhm.
Then the next thing you offer them, okay, but if you want 1 year instead, it will be $1,000
Yeah.
and then you can renew it. And then that's going to seem like such a better option to them.
Yeah.
And I like that one better because then I get the, potential of getting back those illustrations if they don't wanna use them.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like a win-win situation.
That's a great system.
Yeah, I love that system. So then there's some different rights. There's standard rights and exclusive rights.
Mhm.
Standard rights would be like, the kind of thing that you would see like with stock photos and graphics for download,
Yep.
like on Creative Market, and other sites like that. Some designers just need your graphics and they don't really care if someone else is using them for something.
Mhm.
And they're basically sharing the rights, and our world's big enough that you probably wouldn't run into them.
Mhm.
They're willing to take the risk of not having exclusive rights. Exclusive rights would be that no one else can use this. It's only for that client. I can't even use it for something that I want to use it for.
Yeah.
Those rights are just for them, and they're going to pay higher for that.
Okay.
And if you wanted to know more about that, a really great thing to look at is actually if you go on Creative Market, you
Yep.
can actually look in their terms and services, and they have a whole like explanation of their what they think standard and exclusive rights are for the people who sell on their site. Now, that's not what everybody has to do. You can make up your own terms,
Yep.
but that's actually a nice detailed guideline to go by if you don't want to have to think it all out.
Thanks.
But and so you can also sell by the rights by locality. Like say
Mhm.
these rights would only be for people in Switzerland,
Yep.
and it doesn't extend to the United States.
Yeah.
Or if you say you want rights in the whole world, then it's going to be more.
Yeah.
Um, so
So if
if
they're selling the product online, it's more.
yeah, in theory, it depends. It
Customer will be in Switzerland.
All of this depends on what their target audience is, um, and who they actually want to sell their product to. So, um, you might all these points are really great for negotiating.
Mm.
If they can't come back and say, "Well, your prices seem too high for me," and then we say, "Well, you know what? We can get creative with the rights.
Mhm.
We can kind of rein those rights in, and this whole price can be cheaper for you. Would you like me to send you another option for pricing?"
Yeah.
And you can adjust these things. Another thing is the amount of units that they are able to sell. You could say, okay, for this lower price, you can print out 500 units of your product, and the price will be much lower than if it was unlimited prints
Yeah.
that they can sell. Um, so it might be a good test run for them to pay for that first, and then come back to you and pay you more,
Mhm.
at a later time if
Mhm.
it's successful.
Yep.
And then also, like what I mentioned before, the usage, like the type of product that it can be used on. You can say this is only for bed sheets, but not clothing. This is
Mhm.
only for use in editorial, but not in a whole book.
Mhm.
Only for use on a product and not for a logo. A lot of times I really specify that because I feel like making a logo for someone is a completely different thing than creating an illustration for a different reason for them.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
you wouldn't even you would probably create something different for that.
Yeah.
And a lot of our illustrations are not meant to be marks. They're
Yeah.
not meant to look good in different scales on different business items.
That's an issue I've run into where I have sent people a file and they have not understood that and printed it on something with an inkjet printer and hung it up. And I
Yeah.
learned that I have to really be either I organize the printing in that situation
Hmm.
or work as liaison between the printer and the client. Because
Yeah.
some people are not computer savvy and some people don't know how to work all of that stuff.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of one time when I was first starting out, like years ago. I wanted to get my logo like created by someone who did hand lettering on Etsy, and then she actually sent me a stamp of it that I
Yep.
could use, which is really cool. But then she also sent me the file of it so I could use it on other things. and I did not know why it had a checkered background.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
did not realize that that meant that it was had transparent background and how I could even ever use it. Like I didn't have Photoshop.
Yeah.
Although you can use it like for PicMonkey. I mean, there's like free uh, free things, photo editing sites that you can use with it. But that would have been nice if like she actually took the time to explain that to me
Yeah.
or had like an informational sheet because I was actually writing her and was saying, there's something wrong with this. The background looks really weird. It's a checkered background and I did not order that. Like, imagine what she was probably thinking. I was so clueless.
But having an information sheet is really helpful. That's a really good idea because I have a feeling I'm going to run into this quite a bit at the moment.
Yeah, I'm actually like for my own graphics that I'm getting ready to post for sale. I think in within the folder download of it, I think I'll create a sheet that explains to them how they can use it, and I
Yeah.
might say you can use it on these websites, Canva, PicMonkey, just things so that they don't have to feel like they need to go and be like a computer expert.
Yes. Yeah.
And but they can actually use it for like if they want to create invitations for their kid's birthday party, they can do it.
Yeah.
And I might just give them a little step-by-step instructions or like somewhat of like a glossary, like, oh,
Yeah.
a PNG file needs
Uh-huh.
it has a transparent background. Not everyone knows that.
No.
So I think that we get really far down in the path of what we're doing and we kind of assume that everyone knows this stuff, but
Yeah.
they really don't.
Yeah. No, they really don't. That's what I've been finding.
Yeah. So, and also, if you realize how much you know,
Yeah.
then and how valuable your acquired knowledge has been, then you can do something like what we're doing right now. Like I kind of like didn't realize the value in the stuff that I know, and then when someone started asking me some really smart questions, like the ones you sent me, like yeah, we could talk about this like all day.
Fantastic. I'm here. I'm ready.
Anyway, so it's really fun talking to someone who actually like thinks this is interesting.
Yeah, same. I'm having a great time, and it is really helpful. And what I've decided to do with this one particular client, because I know she's struggling with all of those issues, is that I will sit down with her and send things to the printer.
Yeah.
So
And that's another service that you can offer to your potential clients. You put on your pricing proposal and say, "I'm here also to help you with the printing process and to format this." And also, then you're in your mind whenever you're presenting the price, you're actually upping that price a little bit
yeah,
because you're offering more value to them.
yeah,
Okay, so the next factor in pricing would be to consider how much profit does your client stand to gain?
mhm,
This is something that can sound like a little bit of a complicated concept, but I'm going to try to explain it.
yeah,
Okay, so I'm going to read just a little bit of it because I carefully worded it. Um, this is where it's important to gauge the reach your client has. I always ask a potential client to give me links to their business, social media presence, and in person connections. It is a great idea to jump on a phone call with someone and talk about their reasonings and goals for the projects um, for their project. This is a great time to take notes because people offer much more information about their business, their lifestyle, and their audience when they're not asked to do a writing assignment through
mhm,
email. I think they really do let on a lot more about themselves if they can talk freely.
yes, yeah,
And to ask for those things, I do, I do.
yeah,
But to talk to them and in just a conversation, they're going to be able to give out that information easier. And if
mhm,
or you're taking notes, just take notes on everything that they say
yeah,
because it's going to help you build a bigger picture about who they are and what they're representing, what business they're representing. Um, Definitely try not to make them feel like you're like interrogating them in some way to find out some information that they're not willing to give.
mhm,
I'm not sure how many clients would realize what you are doing
mhm,
to analyze. their business in order to kind of guess at the profits that they're going to make.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that.
Mhm.
But we don't want to make them ever feel like we're like, digging for information from them.
Yeah.
So just be conversational.
Yeah.
Um, and your end goal is basically trying to quantify your client's return on their value by identifying their most pressing problem or goal.
Mhm.
Okay, so um, it's really hard to put monetary value on solving a client's problem.
Yes.
It's not just something that you can easily do, because there a lot of times people are reluctant to give their budgets. Um, they kind of don't want to disclose that information.
Yes.
Um, so you can ask in some really creative ways. And I am actually sending you my notes,
Thank
and
you.
I will make my notes available, probably in the description, or I'll let people maybe join my email list and I'll send them. I don't know. Maybe I'll make a blog.
Cool.
Um, but I put some sample questions that you could ask them. You could say something like, if I could come up with a way to gain you one new customer by what I create for you, how much money would that customer bring in for your company?
Yeah.
Um, how many new customers do you hope this project will produce in a month? So you don't have now when you're on the phone call with them, I'm not giving them the prices that I'm going to provide for them at this time. I'm just gathering information.
Yes. Yeah.
So to have them just take it, if they say, I don't know, like, well, can you just like take a stab in the air?
Yeah.
It would be interesting to consider this, and it's something that they need to consider. Because part of being a really good business owner is knowing the cost of acquiring a new customer,
Yeah.
and knowing their ROI, which is return on investment. Um, so another question would be, how much do you plan to sell the end product for, and how much profit will you make per unit, and how many do you aim to sell in 1 month? And actually, this leads into another option for you in
Mhm.
pricing. Um, you might offer your client, if they say, well, we would really love to hire you for this project, um, but your pricing is after you presented your pricing. Your pricing seems too high for us, and but we really want to work with you. And you could say, well, another option would be profit sharing.
Mhm.
To say, I will create this art for your product that you want to sell, and
Mhm.
then on the end of that, then you would receive the profits according to how well it sells,
Yeah.
which is great motivation for you to make it even better.
Yeah.
And if you point that out to them, they might really be interested in choosing that option.
Yeah.
Um, so that's actually something to consider.
Wow.
Another question is, in a perfect scenario, suppose I could completely eliminate your anxiety about this problem you're facing in your business by having me create this project for you. How much would that be worth to you?
Mhm.
And you're kind of setting up a dream scenario for them.
Yeah.
Like, if if you knew that you were going to be 100% successful, by using me for your Illustrator, how much would that be worth? And you want to like throw out some suggestions that are like really high. Like, would you pay $20,000 for that? And they probably wouldn't. But if you can set up a scenario that seems really, really just great and fantastic, and say, I would never be able to do this, but would it actually be worth this much to you?
Yeah.
And so then if they said, well, yeah, in a perfect scenario, if I had that much money, yeah, I would pay for that. Then you would say, well, I'm fairly sure I can guarantee I could deliver on your goals here. Would that be at least worth 50% of that price?
Yeah.
And so you're kind of like anchoring it high, and then you say, well, what if I did this for $5,000 for you, including all these things, and you list off all the things we've mentioned.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Well, what incredible value you're providing for me."
This is a whole different skill set. It's really interesting listening to this because I would have not considered any of it. Even just the way you're describing how a product could solve someone's problem. As a writer, as a copywriter, that's all I write about all the time. I'm constantly thinking about the benefits to the client and how to formulate that and bring that across. And yet with my own illustration, I haven't even begun to look at it like that at all.
Yeah,
So, and you're giving me tools right now, which are really helpful. Firstly, a different mindset, but also tools for negotiation, because I'm in a situation now where I've done the work and the project keeps getting bigger, and I still haven't named a price. So now what do I do? And now I can go back with much more confidence with a whole list of things that I've already provided and could continue to provide. And as you said, start higher and come in with something else. That's very helpful for me.
yeah,
You're taking my anxiety away.
yeah. Well, it seems like you actually have some really valuable skills that you can bring just by the fact that you're a copywriter.
Mhm.
I've had situations where I created a website for someone, and I literally I wrote their descriptions on all their products. I wrote all the descriptions on their landing page. You'll probably come into situations where you're going to be using your copywriting
Yeah,
skills, and how you said that you have to basically analyze their information and put it into digestible words. The same thing for your visual communication
yeah.
applies. So I think that to be really a good illustrator, I mean, there are millions of illustrators out there. If you're an illustrator who is willing to identify your unique skills that you bring to the table,
Mhm,
you're setting yourself apart,
mhm,
and you're offering such a level of service that I think is really desirable
mhm. Yeah,
for
that's
clients. Also, you might want to work on actually wording this somehow on your website.
yes.
Use your copywriting skills to talk about all the different skills that you have to share.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I actually have some examples, and they're real life examples that I like, jobs that I actually had. Um,
Mhm,
and so I'm not going to identify them specifically, but generally.
uh-huh.
So I thought that I could throw out some of these before we go on to the fifth factor, and kind of just discuss what you would do in this situation. Okay, so here's an example, and I titled it "When Your Illustrations Are the Base of a Business."
Mhm,
So this scenario would be: a client has created a teaching program that is based around a complicated system of physical exercises that they want to teach their potential clientele. Your job would be to take their complicated concepts and break them down into visual form so that a little child can understand them.
mhm,
The client has some ideas about on how to do this, but they want you to do a lot of this strategy and how to create and package this information for their audience. They have a large blog and social media following, as well as a network of presenting at in-person conferences.
mhm.
They have an eager, waiting audience, and they want you to create their central product.
What would I do?
So, what are some of the things that we've discussed so far that you could um, actually make as terms in the pricing proposal?
Well, I think I'd start by calling you
And you can do that.
to ask.
I hope you do next time that you have a job offer.
Well, I mean, then so in terms of value for the customer, that's that what you're creating is a very high value to them, and they have a broad reach. So, I mean, that's a very big project,
Yeah.
and I mean, you could be very, if they can't afford it right off, you could be very creative. I mean, I really like that whole setup of the renewals. I don't know if you'd use it in this or not. If you couldn't get them to pay the price, because I can imagine that actually, who knows, if they're really big and they can afford it, the budget they would. But I really like the idea of money coming in on a yearly basis after you've already done the work. So I would aim to try and set something like that up if I could,
Mhm.
but not until I've tried to get the full price, as you described. Um, and exclusive rights, I would imagine I would try to offer that to them as well, because I mean, something that would identify with their brand. It's their product. So
Yeah, it's
Mm,
proprietary,
yeah,
so, these people would be the type of company that have, like, trademarks and,
yes,
um, like,
yeah,
specifically copyrighted information.
yes, yeah. So you're booking your holiday to the Bahamas then?
Yes. This would be definitely a high-priced,
Yeah,
project,
yeah,
and if you can somehow anchor this really high and
mhm,
then come in with your price, then
mhm,
they're going to be thinking in their mind, "Okay, well, we're getting a good deal from this illustrator because, this is even part of, like, a branding type
mhm,
of service that they're asking for." And, it could be something that a whole firm or agency could
yes,
be involved with. And so something like this is it's definitely going to be much more expensive than any kind of little illustration that you're going to be doing for another project. So price accordingly.
question. I in this situation, would the client have already had experience working with illustrators?
Um, this client did have some illustrators that created some of the illustrations, so I'd have to kind of adjust my style to
Mm,
go to fit with that.
mhm,
So yeah, it could be any scenario though.
mhm,
So and hopefully they had worked with illustrators before to kind of know what to expect. I think that's why, as illustrators, it's really good for us to grasp the um, the kind of standard pricing in the industry because
mhm.
we don't want to undercut each other. You
No,
know, like where if I price that pretty high, they're like, oh well, you know, you're out of your mind, and this person over here can do it. And like, yeah, but I will do such a better job for you. Being able to list all my skills and actually honing your skills as an illustrator, just being
yeah,
the best illustrator that you can be.
yeah,
Okay, here's another example. So this is where your illustrations would be like a complement to an established business. And this would be like a client has a super successful online children clothing boutique. Christmas is coming and they want to find a way to thank all of their favorite clients on their email list. The owner contacted you and asked if you would create a set of paper dolls that they could give away as a free downloadable print for their audience.
cool. That sounds like fun. So that's a one-off, no? In that sense, and it's something that you yourself could use again later.
Mhm.
Kind of a cool thing. So, what did we call that for ancillary products or projects? You could have standard rights where is that correct?
Yeah,
Standard rights.
you would probably want to specify in your contract that this is the only way that they may use it. And if
Yeah.
you want more uses, then they can pay for more rights.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm. You want to specify that they probably wouldn't use it for their logo, but at this point, they probably already have one. Um, but yeah, it's not their main product, so it's probably not going to be priced as high as something that, like, the entire business would hinge upon.
Yes. How would you set it up so that you can use it yourself again?
I would say that okay, say that they can use it for the printing of about 500 units,
Yeah. Okay.
um, or online. It's to this many. I don't know if you could regulate the amount of digital downloads. I don't know. Or in that situation, maybe you would say for a period of 6 months because they don't really only want to use it for Christmas time.
Exactly.
But maybe they want to use it for next year Christmas time too. Then they could buy an entire year.
Now, could you say they bought it for 6 months, they don't want to use it again? Could you sell that then to another client in a different type of business than theirs?
I think you could. Just rebrand it. Like, you might want to put it in a different layout or something,
Mhm.
different format.
Okay.
But yeah, like this is where it's really wise to keep all of your illustrations and to they're not dead. They can come alive again.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, my third scenario would be if your illustrations are used for a wishful startup. I get a lot of these. I
Yeah.
think people do when they start out. A friend of a friend is a stay-at-home mom who just wants to start a business for the fun of it. She's living her dream taking care of her small kids at home, but she misses the connection of the workplace.
Mm.
She and her oldest daughter, who is 6, they love to bake together in the kitchen. She thought it might be fun to bake cakes at home for her friends and family to buy, and she wants to name the business after her cute little daughter.
Mhm.
She wants you to create her logo, including a little avatar of her daughter, as the mascot. This would be a great portfolio piece for you,
Mhm.
but might not go much beyond that.
Mhm.
So I wanted to say a side note. This is the perfect customer to sell an archival print to,
Mhm.
or the original artwork that you
Mhm.
created.
Mhm.
So you can also offer that as an additional option.
Okay. Cool. So I have to solve how I would do that. You can't just sit here and say it's cool.
Yeah, put your mind to work.
Um, yeah, I mean, you know ahead of time, most likely she's not going to have the budget for that. So it's just a one-off piece that you sell, as you said, as a piece of artwork.
Mhm.
But you could also resell that yourself, could you not?
Um,
It's tricky.
I would probably wait for a period of time before I did,
Yeah.
and make that really clear to her because she's probably the type of person that will follow your career and, feel that you have to be really clear with her usage rights.
Yeah,
And if it's a picture of her little daughter, she may feel ownership over it in a way.
exactly.
So,
Um, my experience of a client like that so far is that again, I think this is where you could help with the printing and setting things up on the website as well if you wanted to offer that. Because I had a situation with a friend of a friend who also wanted something like that, and it was she was making some handcrafts, and we're going back and forth, and I realized she was getting frustrated because the color scheme I was sending her was on the screen, and she was printing it on a printer and getting different colors.
oh yeah. And if you use Procreate, that's actually a little bit of an issue
Yeah.
whenever, because it actually uses RGB
Yes.
instead of CMYK, and CMYK is the color scheme that is used when printing.
Yeah.
So I've noticed that it kind of dulls the colors.
Yes. That's exactly what happened. She said the colors look too gray. So
Yeah, they do have a muddied tint.
you could add that kind of service to your pricing.
Yeah, if they like if they want you to bring it into Photoshop and adjust the colors, you
Yes.
definitely could price up for that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, my fifth factor in pricing is kind of a wild card. But it's how much desire do you have to do this project?
That's
And
an important factor.
so all of the factors above that we've just mentioned are negotiable for you if you have a high desire to do the project.
Yeah.
So, number one, it might be your dream client.
Mhm.
Okay. So it could be like a real big company. The larger the company is, the one downfall for illustrators with that is that the more ability that they have to choose more talented artists.
Mhm.
And if they're considering other illustrators and making you know that, then
Mhm.
you probably have to present your prices at a more competitive rate.
Yeah, they'll put on price pressure for sure.
Yeah. And so you in a situation like that, it is valuable for the notoriety and the reach, depending on um, how they're going to use your art. But it would be a great addition to your portfolio. And it doesn't. I'm not in support of the fact that like big, huge companies can just pay whatever they want to
Mhm.
artists, and because I had mentioned earlier that the larger the company is, the more value that we're actually bringing to them.
Mhm.
So it really depends on what it is that they're asking for.
Mhm.
They may have like a really large budget for it that would be larger than you would ever have made before and be happy with it. But
Mhm.
I think that it gets complicated. So everything is not just black and white.
No. Mhm.
Um,
It's interesting because, you often hear that exposure is really not worth the time that you invest on the work.
because the people who offer exposure usually don't have any real type of exposure.
Yeah. Okay. But if you have one of those corporate clients
Yeah.
and they put pressure on you and the price comes down, but you get the exposure, you have their name on your website as one of
As
your clients.
Yeah.
Credibility, not just
Right.
exposure.
but you need to figure out a sweet spot because you don't want to just be doing free work for them.
Mm-mm.
You kind of have to know what your minimum is going to be in your mind and negotiate down from
Mhm.
there. But it like I said, all of the circumstances really depend.
Mhm.
So, but that is something to consider. Um, Also, another thing is it might be for a cause that you strongly believe in. So, I actually do free design work and illustration work for my friend's nonprofit that she has. And what she does is that she provides free childcare to single moms.
Mhm.
Um, I used
Wow.
to be a single mom and with three really little ones, and it was really difficult. And I had so much support around me that I didn't need that service,
Yeah.
but she was my good friend during that time, and I feel it's like a real personal thing that she's doing this now. And she's worked really, really hard to get there. She has a whole staff of people, and that's just something that I like happily want to contribute to.
Yeah.
So everybody has their personal causes, and I think it's really important to just be generous with your skills and choose wisely.
Mhm.
And it's okay to take down your price or do it for free if you want to.
Yeah.
Never feel pressured by because I feel like some people come at you in almost somewhat of a manipulative way, and kind of give you their sob story and like, I really need this as a discount. I'm like, okay, well that's great, but it's not my thing,
Mhm.
and I
Mm.
don't feel guilty for saying no.
Yeah.
So another thing would be, it would just be fun for you. You
Yeah.
have maybe a gap in your portfolio where you've really, like, wanted to do this certain thing, you've never done it before, uh,
Mhm.
but, it's another negotiating, term for you that you can actually say, "If I do this for a lower price than I normally would do," and you anger high, tell them what you would normally do. Say, "I'm willing to do it for this lower price if you give me just complete creative freedom."
Yeah.
I did that actually right around Father's Day. I had some time to do an extra project, and somebody asked me to do a illustration of their kids for their dad.
Mhm.
And and she told me her budget, and I was like, well, I normally don't do it at that price, but I would be willing to do it for you for that price if I can do my own idea.
Cool. Yeah. Oh, that's really helpful.
And
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that. That was the superheroes. Actually did an illustration on top of a photo in an alley and made it all the boys were superheroes
Oh, that's cool.
and did it like a movie poster or something. So that was really fun. But I think that you can just be creative about that.
Yeah.
So one other thing that I wanted to mention is that one thing that artists use is this. I don't know if you've ever seen this before, if you have it.
I do. Yes.
Okay,
It's
so
huge.
the Graphic Artists Guild Handbook of Pricing and Ethical Guidelines.
Yeah.
You, if you have it, you know what it is. But it's basically they've pulled a bunch of creative professionals, and they update it in new editions all the time. And so it's nothing that I would ever start with.
Mhm.
Um, it would be something that I would end with, and
Mhm.
something that I would compare my price to, um, and see if I'm being reasonable about my pricing.
Yeah.
Um, it's just a good comparison, I think. And also, it might ever, if they're within the creative industry, they might know of it,
Mhm.
might be able to even refer to it and say, yeah, so my prices actually are pretty consistent according to, and then
Yeah.
refer to the handbook.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
No, I found that helpful as well, actually, because starting out, I really had no clue. And that was a good place for me to just get a little bit of information and then go from there to gather more.
yeah. So I'm actually going to send you my pricing proposal template if you would like to look at it. And
Oh, I'd
um,
love it.
so I'll send it to you, and all you have to do is just delete the blanks and then put in what you want to, and just use it as something to start off with, and it might help you for next time. So it has a lot of these concepts in there.
Thank you very much. Now, can I just ask, how long did it take you, through experience, to pull these ideas and the negotiating skills? Because this is when I said this is another skill set. This isn't an illustrating skill set. This is a negotiating and a sales skill set that takes time to develop.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to develop that?
I like research this stuff. It's so interesting to me. It's
Yeah,
pretty much all I listen to all day long, like for several years.
yeah.
Um, and
Mhm,
I've just always kind of been entrepreneurial. It's hard to say that word. Um,
okay.
I've been business minded and I listen to tons of business podcasts, watch business YouTube videos,
Mhm.
read articles. It's just a subject that I'm super interested in. So I think I'm just kind of a sponge when it comes to that. I just soak it all up.
Well, it's
So
really helpful. Thank you.
yeah,
Again, like last time, you've given me so much to think about, and I feel like I feel like I have to pivot with this information.
yeah. And the next time that you have a project, I would love it if you wanted to get some feedback on that. And we can maybe go over it together and brainstorm about the different pricing options that you can
That
offer.
would be brilliant because I can see I have to sort of just absorb all of this information and really, I mean, I had no idea there were that many options.
Yeah,
And what I really like about it is how you describe it. Is there are so many creative ways to approach pricing, which is a
yeah,
fantastic way to describe it because it's less intimidating that way.
yeah.
And
And it,
it's
I
the
mean,
way,
we all assume there's like some official way to do it,
yeah,
but there are many different pricing theories about how people go about pricing what they do.
yeah.
And they're different in different industries. And I think they're different to each person that's doing it. So I think that, once I realized that there's no standard way of doing it, I felt the freedom to just make it up myself.
Exactly. That's what I feel like. You've just opened the gate. Thank you.
Yeah. Super interesting conversation.
I have something to show you quick.
Oh, do you want me to stop the broadcast?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Does it look familiar to you?
Ah! You got my
And
book.
as you can see,
Aw. Oh, that's so awesome.
it's absolutely beautiful.
Aw,
Really, really beautiful. I love it.
thanks. Yeah, it was a really fun project. So thanks. That's awesome. So you're working on children's book illustrating right now, aren't you? In the Matt's class?
Yeah, in Matt's in the Make Art That Sells class. It's the children's book, and it's very intense, more so than I thought it was going to be. Even
I saw, is that the first thing they have you do is to create the accessories for your main character?
yeah, yeah.
I saw your illustration on Instagram. It is so cute.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it actually, and that for me that was a really good way to get into the process because instead of having to come up with an entire character, you start to think about the personality of the character and how that fits in the story, and you can get weird with the accessories, and I think you're more likely to get weird and more creative with the accessories than you would with the character to begin with. I
Yeah,
think that's how it works for me.
I've literally never thought of that. And
Yeah.
so, because I feel like there's like, when you're creating characters for a book, especially the main character, you do have to create somewhat like of this intricate backstory that's in your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, especially if you're the one writing the story. But if someone presents you with the story, you're like, well, um, I don't have a lot to go off of, but I'm going to start imagining what
Yeah.
kind of person this is.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened, and so that's a lot of fun. And every day as well, we have to sketch in our sketchbook. We get a word prompt and sketch something, so that's also a nice warm up.
So, do you actually have a story in mind, or the class is helping you develop that?
I have some stories that I eventually like to write myself, but no, in the class they gave us a choice between three stories. One is an adventure story. I went for that one. The other one is about friendship, and the other one is a little bit about um, the Swedish girl and environmentalism. Greta, I can't remember her last name.
Oh, it's something about wolves.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing,
You're
like,
seeing
lots of different people's posts on it, so they're
yeah,
sharing about it, and so I'm like, it's so fun. What I think is really cool is that you have these 3 concepts that, all these different artists are doing their own version of.
yeah,
You
it's
can see how different and how unique people's creativity can be.
absolutely. Yeah, that's the fun part for me. I mean, it's
Have
just cool.
have you ever seen, on I just found this show on YouTube, and I think it's a British show. It's, Portrait Artist of the Year.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
Okay, you need to look it up because it is, where these, all these different artists, they're like 9 different artists that come in, and they, some are amateur and some are professional, and then they have like, 3 different, celebrities that are sitting, and they're kind of like, it's like in a circle, so they're all kind of like, they have their own backdrops, and they have to sit for 4 hours, and then they have 3 artists on each, celebrity, and they're painting that person. So and then at the end, they all turn their canvases around, and they're all the same person but different
Cool. Yeah.
renditions of them. And then they get judged and everything, but it's super fun to watch.
Oh, I'll watch that tonight then.
Yeah, well, that'll keep you busy because there's like many, many episodes on YouTube.
Cool.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm really excited to watch your process, and what you're doing in that class. That seems so fun. I wish I had the time to do it.
Yeah. But it's a good thing that you don't have the time to do it because you're busy with other projects.
Yeah, well, I actually have a book, proposal or pitch that I have to create a character for. So I'm actually in the very like similar beginning stages of that. So
Cool.
yeah.
Now, when you have that, do you usually sketch at home? Or do you find you go to, because she recommends that you go sometimes to a cafe or something like that. And I find I mostly sketch at home, but when I'm stuck, I go outside.
Yeah, I usually sketch at home just because I get in this kind of really weird position when like it my seat is comfortable for me. Actually, like last summer, fell down the steps at a lake house where we were visiting. I wasn't familiar with it. I fell down the steps, pretty much broke my tailbone.
Oh
So
no.
other like I can't sit very long on another seat, like a hard surface. So
I've bruised
yeah.
my tailbone since the course started sitting. So could we do another episode together about tailbones and,
Injury.
and injuries and how to keep yourself fit?
That's the whole thing because I regularly kind of like will strain my hands and I need to give it a rest. And there's like things that I do to like ease the pain.
Yeah. No, I think that's another area we could do some work with.
Yeah, at like ergonomically correct desk setup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I have to get up every hour and walk around. If I don't, I will get like a pain in my neck and have to like go to the chiropractor.
Yep. Same.
It's a real thing, and I think people really do like get injuries from being in one position for a long time.
Yeah. Hmm. Do you have a spongy thing on your pencil for your Apple Pencil?
Oh, you mean like something to help hold it?
Yeah.
I don't. I actually like hold my pencil weirdly, like
This
okay,
is now really personal. Okay.
like this.
Spongy thing's not going to help you.
Yeah, and like teachers always try to give me. Growing up, they would try to give me like those triangle things that make you hold your pencil like this because they said I'm holding my pencil
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
Like, that's hopeless. I'm never gonna hold my pencil that way.
But I
Yeah, so I hold it like that.
hold their pencil exactly like you. I have seen other people.
What
I've
did you
seen
say?
other artists hold their pencil like you do. Yeah,
Oh,
it's a
it's a
thing.
thing. I think my problem with it is that I tend to grip the pencil way too hard, so I have to like consciously make myself ease up on my grip,
Yeah.
or it causes hand pain. I think I'm like I don't know if I'm inducing like some sort of arthritis when I'm an old lady. I'll have problems. I don't know. I always tell myself if that happens, I'm switching and becoming ambidextrous. I'll just learn with my left hand.
Alrighty.
Yeah. It's all in your mind anyway. You could just need to train yourself. I could probably learn in a couple months. A little overconfident, probably.
Yeah, no, that's a good solution. I'll keep that in mind because I was cramping up and I bought a little spongy thing and it helps a lot. But now if it gets crampy again, I'll just keep in mind I can always use the left.
Yeah, I would love to see someone do that. Just out of convenience, learn to like draw
Yes.
with their left hand.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. Anyway, so I feel like that kind of covers the subject, and I will send you the notes. And
Thank you.
had a lovely discussion today.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate all the prep work you put into this and that you so generously share your experience.
Oh, well, I appreciate you just being a listening ear. Okay, well, I guess we'll see you next week then.
Sounds good. Have a good
Okay,
day.
bye.